Welcome, welcome. Thank you for having me. My name is Heidi Ergens, and I work with sound. So, a little bit about me. I've been working with sound for, well, most of my life, actually. I've always been singing. My parents were both deaf, so I was always listening to sounds. I was the interpreter of the sounds, I guess you would call it. I was always singing. I was majored in singing in college, at least for the first year, and then I shifted to something else. I always was playing around with sounds. I ended up working in radio and TV and doing radio shows and TV and working with sound. Back then they didn't have sound effects, so what would make that sound? You know, playing with sound to make it sound like something that we're used to. Like, what would that sound like? And actually, what we hear is basically what our brain determines we hear. So if you hear a sound, everyone will think that's something different because your brain is filtering that and saying, oh, that's that, oh, that's that, based on your experience, based on your, one person might hear something as, oh, that's so relaxing, and someone else might say, oh my gosh, what's happening? And they might be freaked out. Or even visually, you know how that is visually. What we see, someone sees, what you see is actually, everything we see is actually your brain interpreting it as something, even colors. So I work with a variety of modalities. I work with tuning forks, bowls, crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls. I work with essential oils, stones and crystals, Reiki, although in a different way, biogeometry, but mostly it's whatever comes up is for each person, because each person's different and each person resonates differently. Let's do a experiment. Everyone close your eyes for a moment and think about, how does sound affect you when you hear something? Okay, let's do an experiment here. So I'm going to activate the bowl and think about, where do you sense that? Do you hear it? Do you feel it? Do you see a color? Do you taste something or smell something? Everybody's different. And there's no judgment. Just notice. Take a deep breath in. So, did anyone see a color when you heard that?
It got lighter.
Lighter. Did anyone taste something? No, that's... Did anyone get a word or a knowing of something? Any insight?
I saw shapes.
You saw shapes.
Yeah.
So everybody's different. When someone's on the table, someone will say, I'm seeing all these geometrical shapes, or someone else, all these colors are floating by, or someone else, I feel that here, I feel that here. So everyone's different. We're all magnificent creatures, and we're all vibrating atoms. We are all just vibrating atoms, and depending on, everything is actually, depending on how fast they're vibrating, will determine if they're lighter or heavier, more dense, more light. And sound is like that, so sound affects us differently. And that brings us to, and I'm not even going by my notes, but that's okay, brings us to all the different modalities there are now. Like sound can go in and target a little kidney stone and break it up, right? Because it'll vibrate and then break it up. Sound is frequency. They're sound waves, frequency waves, vibrations. Many of you may know about Rife. So basically his theory was everything has its own frequency. So if there's I don't want to call it a disease, but an affliction or an issue, that has a certain frequency. So that frequency would be a wave. And then if he put in another wave that was the opposite frequency, it would cancel it out. And so that's the basic theory behind the Rife frequencies. And of course, those were confiscated and all that. But it still lives on in other types of devices. So that's frequency, and that everything is frequency. And so when you hear something, it can lift your frequency. It can move you into different moods and feelings. So, since I'm talking about sound healing, I thought I would do an overview of different types of sound healing, because really, what is sound healing? You see, oh, sound healing, but there's so many different things. So, what are they? Well, one of them is a sound bath, where you go to a place and you may lay down or sit up, and people will play sound bowls or gongs or things, and you're just relaxing. And sometimes they will include a guided meditation where they have a plan. This is going to be out this, and so they'll guide you through the meditation so that you'll experience certain things. It's suggestion. Sometimes they won't say anything, and it's just up to you to have your experience. Multi-instrument didgeridoos. Has anyone here had a didgeridoo bath? Those are fabulous. They're like, oh. So if you get the opportunity, do that.
What's it called?
Didgeridoo. It's a long instrument. Usually they were in Australia, and sounds kind of like that, but better.
It's an Aboriginal instrument.
It's an Aboriginal instrument, yeah. I have one that someone gifted to me, but I just can't get it. People have their instruments. So again, another thing is that your experience in a sound bath can also be colored by how you resonate with the person who's giving the sound bath. So if you're like resonating with them, it'll be one way, but if you're like, thank you, that's my guy. If you're resonating with them, and then your experience will be different than if you see that person and maybe you've had a bad experience, or maybe something about them feels off to you. Well, your whole experience is going to be different. So that's a big thing to think about. So it's important for you to set the intention. Maybe the guide will set the intention, but it's also important for you to set an intention. So whatever intention they're setting doesn't feel right with you or resonate, make your own intention. My intention for this sound bath is I'm going to get more clarity on this, or I'm going to think about healing for my knee, or whatever your intention is. Set your own intention before you go into any sound healing. There are guided meditations with sound, and those are like, you can get some of those on the internet. There's certain people who do them. I've been a Tom Kenyon follower for years. I did his sound healing workshops and a lot of his stuff. He's like a 5-octave range, and he does all kinds of things. He was also a psychotherapist, so he worked in all kinds of binaural beats and different things like that, and overtones. He founded the Acoustic Brain Research Institute, so you can there's different brain wave states. You're all familiar with brain wave states. So certain ones you get into can help facilitate you being more open to receiving a bigger picture of how things are. And that's basically what I do when I do things. I start off with something to help you get into a certain brainwave state, so you're more open to information from your higher self, from your guides. And that's the thing that shifts. I don't really heal anybody or do anything. I just set the terrain. So again, that's going into the liminal state, and the liminal state is like where you are in between, just before you go off to sleep, when you're sort of getting images and information, or just when you're waking up. That's a very important state to really capitalize on, I guess is a good word. And that's when your mammalian brain or your ego gets out of the way, and it opens your mind, like we say, send the ego to the back of the bus. The ego is very important because the ego has been there for many years to keep us safe, but sometimes it's over the top. So sound therapy is another form. Maybe you've heard about Alfred Tomatis and Dr. Hans Jenny. He did a whole series of works with children with learning issues. That was before the spectrum became big. It was more like ADHD or learning issues. And his work is that some children have certain frequencies that are missing, and so he has certain like CDs or things you can go to his. I think he's in Canada, and they play it. You have to. It's a listening program. There's a wide variety of listening programs where they listen, and there's certain frequencies that it's almost like giving them frequency supplements. So that's that theory. So that's another form of sound therapy, sound healing. There's another woman, Sherry Edwards. She does bioacoustic sound healing, and basically she has this machine, and you talk and record it, and then you send it in, and then she analyzes what frequencies you're missing, and that determines some physical issues you may have or emotional issues, and so then they work on that. Music therapy is another type of music healing, and that's been around for quite a long time. That's actually, you can get a degree in music therapy, and you work with children, and you do like drum circles, and you play music, and it's intended to help them maybe be more express themselves a little bit more, which can be very helpful for a lot of children and a lot of adults as well. In 1938, Dr. Altschuler initiated one of the first large-scale music therapy programs for mentally ill persons in the country at Detroit's hospital, Eloise Hospital. So it's been around for quite a while. Focused sound therapy. This is like listening to music with embedded frequencies to invoke certain brainwave patterns. So sacred acoustics is one. They have a whole list of stuff you listen to, and it's important to listen with headsets because it's a different thing coming in each ear, and so there can be binaural beats, or it's music, it's sound, but it also has incorporated certain frequencies to put you in certain brainwave states. I mean, it's not like brain control or anything. It sounds like that, but it's not. It's just to help you relax or to help you think better, like if you really need to focus, those kinds of things. Binaural beats, again, that's if you have one frequency here and one frequency here, your brain makes up the difference and creates a new frequency. And that's another way of getting you into a brainwave state.
Hemisphere synchronization.
Yes, that.
Brain entrainment.
Mm-hmm. Brain entrainment. Globe sound healing, although I think they're called something else. That's David Gibson and Sausalito. He creates music with embedded frequencies. So you can say, oh, sleep, depression, this, that. But he's actually doing a program working with hospitals and places. And I mean, they do tests and studies and research to see how it affects people, what kind of protocol for this issue or for that issue. So that's really good work that he's doing down there. He's in Sausalito. I'm not sure where, but you can look it up. he works, yeah, he founded a medical sound association. So that's for medical issues. You can work with mantras and seed syllables. Mantras have been around for so long. You can, when you sing mantras, there's actually seed symbols embedded in those that are
They open up the chakras.
They open up the chakras, they energy centers, they do all kinds of things. So you can sing mantras, you can listen to them. I just wanted to say one more thing about that because this is pretty interesting. David Crow has a whole series of things, the Illuminated Heart, and his thing is that the chakras aren't, you create the space so the deity can come in, and that can give you the sense of what that deity represented. So you know, there's so much out there that you can explore, but that's about that. Listening to sound, think about what kind of music you're listening to, because whatever mood or intention that musician was going through at the time they were making that recording, it comes through in the music. So that's interesting about all the rock concerts maybe we've gone to. Think about that. Better if they're joyful, I guess.
Or unconscious.
or unconscious, exactly. Yeah, Tom Kenyon always sings, and he has a lot of music, and he sings with like prayerfully. Deva Premal, I'm sure all of you are familiar with her. So then that brings me to specific sound therapies, like the ones that I know about are the acutonics, which are these. Hard to see them. These are acutonics forks, and so each color represents a planet, or new moon, full moon, sun, earth, zodiac, and then the personal planets, then the transpersonal planets. And there's 3 octaves, low, medium, and high. And so acutonics works with astrology. It works with Taoist theory, because it's basically you're doing acupuncture but with tuning forks instead of needles. You're working in the field, you're working chakras on the body, and so that's the acutonic system. Each fork, for instance, is like Jupiter. That's one of my favorite forks. Jupiter it's a gas giant. It's expansive, you know, you can feel, wah, I want to feel great, you know, Jupiter. It can also lead to excess in some ways. So you're working archetypically with Jupiter. You're also working with Jupiter, has an affinity with the liver and the eyes. In Chinese medicine, each fork has an affinity with different organ systems. And so you would pair tuning forks together. You would never do one. You would do the interval between them. So like in music, a fifth is very opening, right? A third is, I feel good, you know, because we're used to listening to thirds in Western music. A seventh is like, I have to resolve that, you know. So you use 2 forks to create these intervals, to create a sense of movement, because basically when you have pain, it's because energy is stuck somewhere, like a hose. If you have a hose and water is going through it, wherever there's a kink in the hose, it starts swelling up around it, just inflammation. So we want to move energy. Just a quick story. My son, when I was working with this, when he was in middle school, he's almost 30 now, but he came home one day from middle school. He says, "Mom, what's that fork you have, the joy fork?" That would be Jupiter. Let me play Jupiter for you. So this is high frequency Jupiter. We also have chimes. There's a chime for each And there's a gong for each one. I don't have gongs because they're big. I don't have a lot of space. This is Jupiter. So if you wanted to, if someone was feeling like, oh, I just don't have any joy left in life, and something's off. I feel like or maybe they just want a lot of sugar because they can't get the sweetness of life. So then you would pair Venus and Jupiter together. So Venus is, balance and beauty and the sweetness of life, and pair it with Jupiter so that, get a better hit with this. So you would put one fork on one point, on another, like acupuncture points. Like if you want someone to, like if they're like feeling like they're in a box, you would open up. So you would do the 4 gates, which is typical in acupuncture, but with tuning fork, you can do with a new moon and Om, which is very opening. Let's open this up a little. And if I was on a person, I would put them actually on this point here on both hands, which is a very common acupuncture point, unless someone's pregnant, so don't do that.
Damn.
And then between the big toe and the second toe where they meet, that's liver 3. That's very. So if you're angry, you can rub that point. So that's the 4 gates would be helping someone to feel like, okay, I do have options. See, what else can I say about acutonics? Acutonics, was created by a woman she ran a acupuncture institute in Seattle, and another woman who was actually a shamanic worker, sound healer, and they created it because the woman who was Donna Carey, who was the creator of the system, she had a gong bath, and it was like a samadhi experience. And so she said, okay, this is it. And she's very Aquarian, let me put it that way. And so she started the whole system, and it's been, I don't know how many years, more than 20 years. And they have since moved there's another partner, Ellen, and they are in New Mexico, but now it's a whole system. Like to be an acutonics practitioner, you have to take like 9 courses. You have to do your clinic hours, and you have to do a thesis and all that. And so they're always coming. There's a whole equine system. So there's a whole group of people who work just with horses, people who work with children, a lot of different spreading out. There's one woman in Mexico. I forget the name of it, but they travel to small towns and teach the women how to use it for their family and community. So that's acutonics, and that's the history of it. I won't go into the details because I never remember details, and we're talking about sound, not history. The other thing I work with is biofield tuning. So biofield tuning was developed by Eileen McCusick. She's out of Vermont. She started off as a massage therapist, and then someone gave her some tuning forks, and she just played around with it. And so, thank you. So she just developed it and got information. She calls it the mailbox slot, which is the back of your head, which is also your visual cortex, so where you get information too. And so with her system, you have a biofield which goes out about 6 feet on all around you, and you're connected to the earth, and the central column comes up and goes up and around and creates this toroidal field, and then your connection to the sun comes down and makes another toroidal field, so they're interlaced, and this is your toroidal field. And your field goes out about 6 feet, as I said, and it's related to the chakras, and then the interstitial chakras between the chakras as well. So, for example, if I would set it up, and then you decide, I find out where your body wants me to work or focus on, and then I would go out. For example, if it's the let's say the throat chakra, so I go out. The right side tends to be more. Can tend to indicate, now these are not hard and fast rules, but it's indications. The right side would be the father's side, the patrilineal side, the father's lineage. The left side would be the mother's side, the lineage of the mother. So I would go out and find the edge of the field, about 6 feet with a fork. Let's say, would you like to? Okay, so maybe sit forward a little bit. So let's say the right side would be, can tend to indicate, but of course, there's all different, can tend to indicate speaking but not being heard. And the left side of the throat can be not saying what you need to say. So, and if you're at the edge, I would say around here, and I would find the edge. So it's about 6 feet, not always the same. Take a deep breath. So at the edge of the field would be birth, or it could be your mother's stuff, or it could be your ancestors' stuff, or it could be while you're in the womb. And then as we go in, how old are you, if you don't mind my asking? Oh, let's say just throw any number. You don't have to say exactly.
67.
Okay, let's say she's 67 years old. So this is 67, and then I keep going.
Are you feeling something different?
I'm feeling, I'm hearing, I'm sensing what I feel in my body, I'm listening, and then sometimes the fork just stops and it won't move. Okay? And so here, if this is 67, okay, halfway would be what? 33. So it'd be around 20 years old or something. Something happened when she was 20 years old that she didn't know how to deal with. It was some emotional thing. Something happened. I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm just going to stuff it down so I can live my life. Frozen trauma, right? And it can be little or big. And so what we do with biofield tuning is we, the sound of the fork resonates into the body, and the body, you can go back if you want. Thank you very much. The sound reflects off the body, and the body tries to come into resonance with that. Tries to come into resonance with it. So it's like, okay, evening it out, evening it out. Sometimes it can't, and it takes more. You have to bring something else. I would sing, or I would bring another instrument in, or I would use a different tuning fork until I could finally move. Or something, I'd say, okay, what's going on here? And I might get some information, like a download. I might feel something. Oh, was there something that happened to you with your left hip, or anything? Something might come up. And then eventually what we're doing is we're actually, when you have frozen energy, it's like crystallized energy out in the field. And it's good to take care of that, because crystallized energy can crystallize into an issue. I hate saying the word disease. An issue. Or in the Chinese tradition, if you don't, whatever you don't resolve, you stuff it into your belt channel, and either you pass it on to your children, or you have to repeat it the next lifetime. So it's good to resolve things. So I would keep going and going and going until I got to her body, and then I would drop it into the chakra. So I've retrieved that information, dropped it in, then I want to blend the information so that you can say, hey, there's a new kid in town, play nice. You want everything to be working well together. And then you call them up. And that's like telling the universe there's been a shift here, so the universe can respond in kind, because all of our intentions and our thoughts affect everything. So that's biofield tuning in a nutshell. And biofield has a number of forks. This is the 144, which is a Fibonacci sequence, actually. It has, this is one of the new one, which is my favorite. And that one's 222. This is a really nice one. And this one is one fork that doesn't have a job. It just kind of calms the space, right? So it's very nice. Things don't always have to have jobs.
It's like the tuning fork equivalent of quartz crystal.
Yeah.
Kind of just a general
Quartz crystal is
vibrational
amazing.
amplifier.
In Chinese lingo, it's called the outstanding one.
The outstanding one.
Yes. And crystals are amazing because basically they are memory keepers. They hold energy, they hold information. You can focus them to direct energy. I mean, look at computers. It's all using quartz crystals. They're based on quartz crystals. So this is a 528, which is, some people call it the DNA fork. Some people call it the love fork. Depending on which modality you're in. Intention is everything, remember? So, let me see. So those are my two main modalities, is the acutonics and the biofield tuning. I don't say, okay, we're going to do this one. I say, okay, come on in and have a seat, talk for a while, and then I jump in and see where spirit wants to go. I may start out with biofield, and then, oh, that's interesting information. I may pull in acutonics forks to move energy, because, oh, we need to, there's something here with the father, or something here with structure. Saturn basically is about structure. The bones, structure, someone's so structured and maybe needs to be a little less structured, or maybe more structure is needed, and so you would combine another fork depending on your intention. Or maybe we'll go into doing certain, like opening to receive information, or in acupuncture you have these 8 extraordinary vessels, and these are in Chinese medicine you have the meridians, right? So we work with the meridians, the lung or the kidney or all that, but there's these 8 extras which are like the original DNA. And One is like everything you came in with. One has to do with your path in life through time. Another one is your path in life through space, in relationship to yourself, in relationship to others. Your mother's side, the conception vessel, how you create. The dew vessel in the back is, your structure, how you stand up in the world. So there's all these things that come in. So I might just go into one of those. It's all based on what comes up in the session. It's all different. Okay, so let's talk about some other tools. Chimes. These are chimes. This is, like I said, there's a chime for each of the planets. There's some that I tend to work with more than others. I love this one. This is Hygeia. Hygeia just came out. She was one of the latest asteroids, and it's interesting in astrology, all these asteroids come up in response to what's happening in humanity, right? Hygeia is about health. She was the daughter of Asclepius, and as opposed to the other sister, and I can never remember her name, she's about preventative health. So that falls right in line with your association here. But she also, when you pair Hygeia with another fork, it raises that frequency to its highest potential. And I think that's just so beautiful. Yeah. This is Sedna. Sedna was an Inuit goddess. Well, she wasn't a goddess. She was a princess. And I don't know if anyone knows the story of that, but Sedna also came up, and she rules all the animals of the sea and the ocean and the waters of the earth. She's about tribal responsibility and tribal betrayal. She's about the Soliton, about everything coming up, and it's all about everything that's going on right now. She was a princess, and she just loved to comb her long hair, and she never wanted to marry, but her father was the leader of the tribe, and it was her responsibility to marry, to help the tribe. She didn't want to, but finally this one very handsome man came by, and she said, okay, I'll go with you. So she goes off to the land with her husband, and then finds out that he was actually a shapeshifter, and he was a bird. A seabird, and she was very sad and lonely, and she didn't like eating worms all the time, and so her father came to rescue her. Her father takes her in the boat, and they start bombing him with the birds. They're all attacking, and so the father abandons her and throws her off the boat. So she grabs onto the side of the boat, and the father, he's so afraid, he cuts her hands. So she goes down, first her fingers and her hands, and then she goes down to the bottom. But out of that, it is sad, but out of that, her fingers and her hands became the seals and the whales and all the sea animals that fed the tribe. And so it's in the theory of it, it's about taking care of your waters of the earth, because it's about cleaning up all that stuff. So this is Sedna. It's about not being hopeless, right? But taking action. No matter how little it is, every little bit helps, even like the small hummingbird, right? So what can you do on your own with healing? You can hum. Humming is like vibrating your whole body on the inside. Singing, they say singing is praying twice. So that's a good thing. The Tibetan bowls, again, you can get a small Tibetan bowl. True Tibetan bowls have 7 metals, and each one represents a different planet. So the gold is from the sun, Mercury, iron from Mars, lead from Saturn, silver from the moon, copper is related to Venus, and tin related to Jupiter. So I'm trying not to talk too much because I think I'm losing some. So my suggestion to you, before we go into questions, is before you go into any sound bath or sound spa or issue, first intentionally pull your aura in about to 3 feet. And if you say, I don't know how to do that, just use your intention. My intention is to pull my aura into 3 feet, because everybody's going to have a different experience, and you don't want to be like all up in everybody else's aura, right? Because then your experience will be a mishmash.
And there's 2.
Huh?
And there's 2.
And there's 2. So just intentionally say, I'm pulling my aura in to about 3 feet, so my experience is my experience. Just think about doing
Or a distancing.
Or fair distancing.
Or a distancing.
Or a distancing, yes. Ask yourself, what's my intention for this sound experience? What do I want to do? Do I want to bring something into my life? Do I want to let something go? Do I just want to relax because I've had a rough week? Do I want to really get some clarity on something? Because I just don't know what to do, so get some clarity, symbolism, something like that. And remember, your answer can be auditory, could be visual, could be a sensing, just a knowing, a feeling, and then it's up to you later to say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean to me? Maybe you get, oh, I saw this bird. Okay, well, go look up, what does this bird mean? What does that animal mean? Or this color, things like that. Don't just leave it at that. Oh, that was fun. Maybe do some homework afterwards. Try and meditate on it or journal on it. Yeah, and then after a sound bath, sometimes they'll say, so anyone want to share? And it's not because we want to hear, oh, it was great, it's not that at all. When you share how you felt, it helps you to integrate it by putting it into words. And it also helps other people, I don't know what I was feeling, but they say, oh, that's what I got too, So it really helps you to sort of integrate things and get that you're not this little person on an island far away and you're the only one that feels that way, because other people may have the same experience. So that's why it's important. And the end of my pages. So that's the end of my presentation, and I think where did we go? I think what we were going to do is ask questions first and then go into the sound bath. So did anyone have any questions?
So can you talk a little bit more about like how sound and vibration does heal us? Like what's happening?
Okay. Sometimes sound and vibration can heal you just because it helps calms down your parasympathetic. That whole thing. It can make your hemispheres balanced so they're not all wonky. It can help you relax so that you're open to more information. Because when you're stressed, you're not
receptive.
This is all I can do. You're not even open to other options. Oh, I never thought of that. So that's part of it. The other part of it is with tuning forks on certain organs, on certain things, you can move things. Like if someone has edema, I'm not a doctor, I don't diagnose. If someone has edema for something, you can work with the moon forks because those move water, right? And you can intend. if someone has pain, you can work, there's a whole pain protocol working with pain, and it helps de-inflame. Like knees, I've had some success with knee injuries, shoulders, neck. I didn't bring a sonic slider. Biofield Tuning has a sonic slider that is, it has a longer handle, and then I put, this thing is called a circuit boot. So they come like this, and then you put the circuit boot on it so it can spread out. And so I have one next to my bed, and I travel with it because I tend to get sinus issues. I don't do gluten, I don't do dairy. I would do this, I would go here on my sinuses.
First you wrap it.
Huh?
First you tap it.
First I tap it, and then I would place it around, right? I might put it on the back of my head, on the top of my head, right? I would do the 4 gates on myself. There's this whole self-care thing you can do. If you put your arm like this, where the crease ends, this is really good for neck pain. And it's good for if you feel like you're starting to come down with something, do that. Also do the outer gate, just to let that out. So there's a lot of different things you can do at home with just one fork. That's sold through Biofield Tuning. But the circuit boot I would recommend. So different forks on different points will move energy. You can, if you just worked, like I said, work on if you're angry, you can work on liver 3. There's kidney points. If you work on your kidney points every day, even if it's just acupressure, it can help boost your kidney energy, your chi, right? So there's different points you can work with.
Well, thank you all for
Maybe that's
coming.
my
The food was amazing.
Thank you,
It was.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you. See you again.